So this week we are going to talk about things to consider when doing your garden. There's a lot of people that do the gardens themselves. Some people have a builder, some people have a landscaper, some people work with a designer and then go through. So we're kind of just wanting to tell the general person. No.
Yeah, well, I think probably the majority of people think of a garden. In a previous podcast, we've talked about, you know, what the trends are and things like that. But I think what people probably do is overlook the amount of things that there is to consider within planning to do a garden. To be quite, I've used the word planning there. There might be planning restraints on what you can actually do to what you actually want to do.
Different areas, different rules.
Yeah, absolutely. What you want to do as opposed to what you actually physically can do legally might be something that people do not consider at all. So yeah, I think there's a vast range of different things which, you know, whether, like you've just said there, you could be working with a designer that they might think about things that you might not. So if we can help pass a few things,
definitely,
and give a few insights that you should consider before you actually start thinking about buying anything or doing anything, then that would be great for you guys, great for us.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are now doing things themselves as well. Obviously, budget's a massive part of it.
Well, that's a massive thing to think about.
Huge, and with a garden, it's not. I think a lot of people think that it is a cheap thing to do. It's absolutely not. It's, unless you're changing a very small part of it as a whole, I think people bypass the garden a little bit and don't realise that from doing something from scratch to the end, it is actually a costly job. I think getting a designer, if you are spending a lot of money on your garden, is essential. But then if you are doing something yourself, completely yourself, then it's just finding that right information of...
Absolutely. You know, even as to, you know, if you want, there's different levels of DIY. There's my level of DIY, which is 0.
There's my level of DIY that I'll put it all together like an IKEA flat pack, but then there'll be one piece that is the wrong way around.
But yeah, there are different levels. But even, you know, as a DIY, you know, there's certain computer programs out there that you can use to be able to sort of like put things in situ, and you know, you can literally play about with different things. Again, there's a massive consideration what you might actually want. Is it actually feasible to actually happen within that certain area? Like you said, if you wanted a bench to sit and look, then where's the sunshine coming? Whereabouts, you know, the orientation of what you want to put, where you want to put it, massive thing to consider. And, you know, that might be restricted by certain things, too close to a fence, to, you know, the height of a structure, if you're going to put a structure in, that type of thing.
Well, let's go through all the bits to consider. But the one thing that I want to say is that if your budget allows, having a landscaper that is specific to landscaping, not as a general, and also having someone to help with the input of the design, if you are spending a lot of money on it, for me that is really important. Because it's experts that know exactly what they're talking about. We'll do our best to go through points to consider advice, if you're doing it on your own. But definitely professional advice is not something to be brushed off easily, because
absolutely. And we could point people in the right direction. You know, we supply landscaping products, which you know, if we supply, I'd say there's quite often is that, you know, the actual buying of the materials itself is only a very, very small percentage of the cost of the actual project itself. So, you know, when people are considering what materials to use or what paving to use or whatever, then yes, that should be the best possible quality that you can afford, but consider all of the other costs. That it's a very, very small
percentage. The paving
percentage.
is very small. I think people think about obviously in a garden there's much more to paving, there's a lot of different areas, but when we're talking about the hard landscaping, people think about what's going to go on the surface, but they don't realise what needs to go underneath, the dig out, drainage, everything else to consider.
Favourite saying of mine, you know, you know, can this paving be laid on so and so? Can this paving be laid, let's say, or a driveway as such? Well, yeah, anything can be laid, but it's only as good as what's underneath it, you know.
Yeah.
So if the preparation's not right, if the sub base isn't correct, if everything else like that's not right, then whatever you put on top of it is going to ultimately fail at some point.
Yeah, and I think as well, even just the moving of the soil, how far you need to dig, how are you going to get your levels, like there's a lot of money that can get spent when your garden actually looks worse after doing it.
Yeah.
But it's the bones of what you need to be able to produce an amazing garden. But there's a lot of money that goes into the hard work, not the pretty side. The paving's the pretty side.
Oh, totally. You know, and it's often the last, obviously the last thing that you see. You know, there's a lot of progress that and cost that you'll never ever see again.
Yeah.
Same as building a house. Obviously, there's thousands and thousands of pounds go into, you know, the foundations and everything else that you don't physically see, and very much so in gardens as well. And you know, you've got different levels of people who might be able to carry out the projects for you, you know. And I think people who get asked quite often, how much is it for, let's say, 20 square metres for somebody to lay.
And how much will someone charge me to lay it?
It's impossible.
And it is impossible.
Because they need to know all of the different circumstances. Where's the water coming from? Where's the drainage going to be? Whatever else like that. So, yeah, it's an impossible question. But
and
what
also
we would
different
is
level expertise. Some people have been doing it a year. Some people have been doing it a long time. They're highly qualified. They've got a lot of knowledge behind it.
Good old lockdown landscapers. But
and it depends. And, like, it's so difficult because it's just so varied. So I think always speaking to someone is what you need to do. It's really helpful. I think if we give some bullet points of maybe like the things to consider from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, ground conditions to start with, you know, yes, is it on clay? Is it on soil? Is it, you know, what is there existing? Can you actually reuse some of what you've already got there in that? Do you need to dig totally out? Can you sort of like reposition somewhere? I think one thing that is massively overlooked and does cause issues after an installation is drainage.
Yeah,
you know, because water, it gets everywhere.
It doesn't if it doesn't run right and it doesn't fall away. Then
got to have somewhere to go. So you know, drainage is a massive consideration that you should do. You know, if you've got somebody who's laying your paving, they should know the correct falls. You should, you know, you've got stipulations about having a certain height below the DPC that you've got on your house. You know, flowing away with some outlet for your surface water to go, and whether that be on a driveway, whether you've got to have, it's got to be SUDS compliant, which is sustainable urban drainage, I think.
Yep.
It is indeed.
Yep.
So that needs to be compliant with that.
And that's becoming such more of a thing now, especially people that are in city centres.
That's just basically, so the runoff water has to go somewhere, whether that be a permeable paving itself. So that is probably going to bore you now, but it's basically a structure that allows your sub base to be permeable. So your paving itself not necessarily has to be permeable, but the joints between the paving need to be permeable, so the water can then run through and soak away into the land. The other way is to create a drain as such, so it run off drain and then so that'll channel it away into a soak off area. So yes, drainage is massive.
I've actually had this in my garden, so you'd think I know, but think that I would know.
Absolutely.
But about 5 years ago I had a wall built. It's a very big wall. It takes up quite a lot of my garden. It separates the two zones. I got two separate people, someone to build my wall and then someone else who designed my garden and did everything through. But because I got a different person to build the wall, what I'm now finding is it's rendered. So now all my render is cracking off. It's all over my garden. And instead of it being a simple fix at the time when it was a breeze block wall and done properly, because it's not being done properly, that the water's obviously got through, it's ruined the wall, and that's something that's kind of going to have to start from scratch to do again, just because there's been a small error on the wall for drainage.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I would say drainage is one of the massive things that you need to consider. You know, you've got all sorts of other things. You know, your natural light is something that's matter. You know, some people are fortunate to have southwest, southeast facing gardens again, which is beautiful. So you got the sun that's coming all the way around there. But again, that is a consideration if you are having like a conservatory or a glass room or whatever else like that on the back of your house. You know, is that going to be usable? You know, because that sun there all day, it's likely going to be too hot.
And as well, they're jumping onto, and it's the end when you're talking about the paving, but if you put jet black paving on somewhere absolutely. That you're not going to be able to walk on it,
no,
because it is going to be so hot. So there's definitely things to consider at the end when you're going towards making your final decisions as well.
I would say, like I say, the gradient of what you try to do. One, you know, if you're on a hillside, you know, you're going to have water flowing both ways, so you need to sort of like consider that you've got water coming off of the hill that's coming that way. You need to channel it away from the house as such. And, you know, I would sort of like say location as in access as well. So if you're doing a back garden where you've no access, that might limit you to being able to do certain things, you know, because if you can't get a digger, if you're literally in a townhouse where you have to go through the house, things might have to be done manually, and whatever you want might not be as achievable, and but cost, ultimately
again that will add on cost. If your access is not there, that's going to cost a lot more in labour time, and that's one reason of why one quote doesn't fit all. It's completely variable.
Yeah, so we do, like I say, we get asked that question all the time. How much will it be? Impossible question to answer, but we can put people in touch with professionals who will be able to sort of like tell them. And like I say, I think the location within the UK itself is a big consideration as well. You know, yes, whilst we charge the same amount per square metre no matter where you are, but getting it there might be an issue for you. You know, if you're at the top end of Scotland, or if you're in Northern Ireland, as we found out recently, you know, the haulage charges to get things there are a lot more than what people do. But I know people who live there expect it, type of thing. But even within, you know, in the centre of London, things like that, you know,
it just changes,
your actual labour costs because of the constraints that you might have are massive. So you got your drainage, you've got your location, you've got your orientation, you've got all sorts of different things before you actually get on to considering what actual product you might actually be using for that as well.
I think one big thing for me is that a lot of people don't think about how they actually use the garden. So everyone else says to you, before you're going to move into a house, don't do it before you've lived in it. You need to live in it a while, see how you live in the house. So like in a kitchen, you would have your bin and your fridge and your dishwasher in a place how you would naturally move around your kitchen.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing for gardens, is that think about how you'd use it. Just because your next door neighbour, like you said, has a bench somewhere to be able to sit, or they have an area that they're going to have the coffee on a morning. If you don't have a coffee in the morning in your garden, that's not something that you need to consider. But you might on an evening like to sit somewhere which is then will need a fire, or an area that's maybe more secure with a building, or it's how you use your garden. Absolutely. So it's not something you can just rush into, because if not, you're going to spend all this money on a garden that you're not even going to use, because it doesn't fit within your lifestyle.
Absolutely. And it's not just, you know, it's what you're actually physically wanting it for.
Yeah.
Yes, the outdoor living is great, but like say, if you're out working 12 hours a day and then come back, you're ferrying the kids all over to cricket here, there, and
our life.
Cricket there, cricket here, football there, whatever else it is, then is there any point at this point in your life to do whatever you think is in trend now?
Maintenance, like this is a big thing. So like planting, everything like that is absolutely beautiful. Like how you design your garden, I think from my point of view, you need a lot of planting to make it
not just hard landscaping.
No, there's so many different points. But if you are never at home, having so many areas of planting is going to be it's going to be harder to manage for you. So by speaking to a plant expert, they might tell you some different plants that don't need managing as much and suits your schedule of how much time you want to spend in your garden. It doesn't always have to be artificial grass.
No.
There's so many different levels of maintenance, but also you can still have a garden that's harder to maintain, but by putting different types of planting in or different types of aggregates and just thinking about it more, you can actually make it suit how much time you have to maintain it, basically.
Absolutely, and I think both of those, well, those points also lead into, I suppose, the type of materials that you don't have to just use one material all with it. You don't have to just use paving all with it. Let's say you pick porcelain paving to put in your garden. Use different things to break those zones up. Use different materials. Create a path using a different material.
Yeah.
And make it more appealing to the eye.
Yeah.
And also, whilst you're doing that, if you've got a path in there, natural drainage through that path.
Yep.
If you're using gravels and things like that, perfect.
This is all things to consider before you even start. It's not because you might get halfway through, and if you start thinking about the things then there might be something that you've done previously that goes against that. So it's going to cost you more money. It's going to cost you more time. So that's why actually having a really good idea at the beginning and thinking all these things through and speaking to experts like
come to us. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, get an idea to start off with, get a full picture, and it will just be a lot smoother process that way.
Yeah, and like I say, the good old weather is something that needs to be able to. We can't control it.
No.
Weather is weather.
Yeah.
You have to have a bit of a reset on whatever else you're thinking. Are you going to invest this amount of money to be able to use it for 2 months a year? Mm-hmm. So it brings everything into that.
Think about value. Like your properties, gardens do add value to a property.
Yeah.
They're not just an afterthought, especially people that are buying now. For me personally, the garden means as much to me as the house because it's a space, like I've got young kids, it's a space that I want to be usable as a family. So sometimes it's actually thinking about your intention as well. Like, are you doing the house up to add value to it and then to move on? Because if you are, you don't need to think about how you would use it. You need to think about what's appealing for someone else to use it.
That lifestyle or whatever. Yes, indeed. But ultimately, I think, like you say, considering what you're wanting from the garden, is it a usable garden? It's great word, usable. Yeah, you're having it as a usable garden for what you want to use it for. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you're wanting outside entertaining, then it's different to if you're just wanting just to have a little coffee in the morning, like you've said. Yeah. Different things to consider.
Some people might have had no time and suddenly they do have a lot of time and they want to spend all the time in the garden. That's a completely different design to someone that's not there. So there's a lot of things to consider.
Absolutely.